And last pile, history, for new books, May 2014. These are in chronological order, or almost pretty well. Life and Leisure in Ancient Rome. This book was from the Better World Books sale, or order. I've got a lot of books on ancient Greece and Rome, and so I kind of wanted a book on the conditions of people. In history, you hear most of the discussion in history about political leaders. You don't get a lot of discussion about the conditions for the average person. So I'm just kind of curious about that. What is the life of a Roman soldier in Rome, or in the outskirts of the Roman Empire? What is the life and leisure of a trader, or a shoemaker, or a pot maker, whatever. So I'm curious about that, what it was like, what kind of games the kids play, anything like that. So this hopefully will talk about hopefully the different classes and what they kind of did. Here's a book on China, The High Road to China. George Bogle, I don't know who that is. The Panchen Lama and the First British Expedition to Tibet. This is by Teltscher. So I'm curious about those kinds of first expeditions and explorers. So it's kind of an explorer book. And I guess this book probably won't talk about the conditions of what Britain did for China and Tibet and India. Some really nice colored pictures in here. But I think that area of the world is better off since the Europeans had visited, but other people disagree with me hotly. There's some nice pictures you can see. So, okay, here's a book on the history of science, Longitude. It's a true story of a lone genius who solved the greater scientific problem of his time. So this book is about John Harrison, who invented it says a mechanical solution, a clock that would keep precise time at sea, something no clock has been able to do on land. It talks about that for the longest time, sailors could not navigate. There was no such thing as navigation without the sight of land. With the invention of his clock, I'm not sure what that is, but a chronometer or something like that. With the invention of that, then, I guess the sexus would come later, but with the invention of those tools, then sailors were able to navigate. Navigation actually then really began, because otherwise you have to be near land. So that is the story about that. Longitude is a famous book on that. There's tons of copies everywhere, especially if you look online, but I couldn't find any at used bookstores, strangely enough. That's by Sobel. So I finally ordered a copy. Here's the autobiography of John Stuart Mill. This is supposed to be good because John Stuart Mill, apparently he was taught Greek at like age 4 and Latin at age 8, and he was a really educated very young, very early. So I'm curious about his life. And John Stuart Mill, of course, wrote some important works, like, I believe he began utilitarianism, but also his book on liberty is very important for politics. So now some American history. I think this is all American history now. The Miracle of Philadelphia, the story of the Constitutional Convention, May to September 1787, by Catherine Drinker Bowen. So this is supposed to be a very important book. Mr. Cropper's channel advocated for it quite extensively. One of his favorite books, I think. So I think this is probably worth having on the Constitutional Convention of the United States. Here's another one that Cropper liked, The Wild Frontier, Atrocities During the American Indian War from Jamestown Colony to Wounded Knee. So this is by Michael M. Osborn. So there's a lot of rhetoric today. I guess back to Dinesh D'Souza's book about the politics of education. There's a lot of rhetoric today that Native Americans were peaceful and never attacked anybody, and they were just minding their own business, and they were fooled by the Europeans and trading all their land away for beads and useless stuff, and they were really nice, and they helped the Europeans and all this stuff. This book, I imagine, tells, like, if that's one extreme that no one, by the way, if that's one extreme that no one believes today, this book is probably the other extreme, that the natives were violent and awful and predatory. And I would say that the story is somewhere in the middle, but no doubt natives in that time were aggressive and attacked Europeans, and no doubt the Europeans were aggressive and attacked the natives every now and then. So I'm just curious. I would really like the truth. The objective truth is going to be hard to find because all we have is historical documents, and all we have are people who write about them with various biases. But so under those conditions of scholarship, the only thing you can do is really read as much as you can on it and make up your own mind. So I'm hoping this book will provide some instances of no doubt native aggression, and to combat a lot of the rhetoric today that natives were aggressed upon primarily. So that should be good. So here's a book on the Depression, The Forgotten Man, A New History of the Great Depression. So I'm not sure what the book is about, other than the Great Depression. It says it's a new history, and it says here that she traces the mounting agony of the New Dealers and the moving stories of individual citizens who, through their brave perseverance, helped establish the steadfast character we recognize as American today. I don't know what that means, but I got, this was a recommendation, and so it was $2.50 at the Better World book sale, so that was fine with me to get another book on the Great Depression. And the last one, more a recent history, called Coming Apart, The Story of White America, 1960 to 2010. This is by Charles Murray. This is supposed to be interesting because I think, is this the book where he contrasts two cities and he follows people in both cities? Yes. Yeah, I've watched a few interviews of Charles Murray. Charles Murray's got some really good stuff out. He co-wrote The Bell Curve, which annoyed a lot of people. And he also wrote Real Education, which I've read. Pretty good book on what education should be. I think I've got a review of that you can look at on my channel. And he has other books I can't think of now, but he's got some great stuff. He's got a book on libertarianism, what it means to be a libertarian, and other stuff. But I've watched a few of his interviews when he talks about this book, and that's why I got it. He talks about two towns, Belmont and Fishtown, which are made-up names. But I believe one of them is suburbia and one of them is lower class. And he looks, I know one thing he looks at was marriage rates. And I think he found that suburbia, upper middle class people have lost most of their marriage percentages are very low today. But lower classes, the marriage rates are higher. And I think he tries to understand why that might be the case. So it's kind of a sociology analysis, a study of groups, right, of these different people. He also looks at religiosity of the group, of the two groups. I guess what he's trying to say is that these groups change differently, and he's looking at why that is. He's got all kinds of graphs in here, and he's got some data in both families. So, and I think he looks at divorce rates and family income and working rates and things like that. So anyways, I thought that might be good as well. About another book by Charles Murray is also fantastic, but because I like his writing style, and he's a good author. So, all right, that's my new books for May 2014.